Peace and love, you magnificent, beautiful miracles. From a spiritual level of being. You have a spiritual level of being. Nathan here from a spiritual level of being, and today I want to discuss the esoteric, deeper meanings of the Bible. Now, the story of the Tower of Babel represents humanity's rise, its fall, its separation from humanity, its separation from each other, its separation from itself, and its separation from nature, the separation from its inner God. When the tower is built, it represents minds coming together, humanity coming together. It represents humanity's rise. When the tower falls, this represents humanity's split, humanity's fall. The dividing of languages also represents humanity's fall. It's split. It's separation from oneself. It's separation from each other. The separation from nature and the separation from its inner God. The separation from the heart and mind. Now, the story of David killing Goliath and holding up his head. This represents David conquering his ego. You conquering your ego, holding up your ego in triumph. Conquering what gives you a big head that makes you feel superior to others. Now, the story of Jesus feeding the multitude with bread. This represents Jesus feeding the multitude with spiritual knowledge. Now, the story of Jesus fasting in the wilderness and being tempted by the devil. This represents temptation of the many eyes, the needs, the wants, the egos, the desires. So this represents you no longer being a slave to your desires, conquering it. So things in moderation, letting love guide your actions, forgiveness, no longer being a slave to your desires, self-discipline, self-mastery. Now, this is also similar to with Moses holding up the Ten Commandments. This represents self-discipline, self-mastery, those who bottle up their willpower and who suffer the whole, oh, why me, woe's me, are victims of circumstances. Now, the story of John being beheaded, the execution and resurrection of Jesus, the crucifixion and resurrection, this represents the spiritual death and being reborn again. So, you might have done shitty things in the past. Now you've learned forgiveness, the language of unconditional love and gratitude. You're on a different conscious level, so you're ascended. You're no longer a slave to your desires, your anger, your outburst. You're in control. You understand that all life is connected, that within all of us is God, that we are connected to the source, that you are God. Now, this also represents as the reborn again being the self-discovery, realizing who you truly are. So, being reborn in a sense is being reborn as the true you, your higher version of you, your higher self, the Christ from within. Now, every time a newborn baby is mentioned being born into the Bible, this represents new life. It represents your inner child, your inner innocence, that the child is being born into innocence. Though it's being born into a corrupted world, it still represents that of innocence. No one is truly born evil. The baby also represents the reliance and also oneness with the mother-father. The baby also represents awareness, as the baby is totally aware, it's totally awake, and it's in a total state of observance. Now, when Jesus mentions the Alpha and Omega, this means that it's never ending, never beginning. Thus, an ending is followed with a new beginning. So life being eternal, the mind, the soul being eternal, God being eternal, your oneness with this energy of life is eternal. Reincarnation. Now, the story of the serpent of brass, that's mentioned in Numbers 21.68. This is when the Lord tells Moses to make a fiery serpent, and all those who look upon this serpent will be saved if they have been bitten. This represents the activation of the Kundalini, so the discovery of the Kabbalah, your tree of life, the awareness. So it represents the reborn again, the opening of your third eye, so being aware. This also represents the transformation of oneself. So this concludes today's little short introduction to the deeper esoteric meanings of the Bible. Now, the Gnostics would understand these mysteries. In fact, they would search for these mysteries in all scriptures. They were much more understanding, much more open-minded, and had a deeper understanding than the average Christian. Now, this being said, some stories in the Bible are also immoral, and they would recognize this is no act of a loving God. They understood these scriptures were written by man, and they contained deeper mysteries that were not meant to be taken literally, but symbolically, where the masses and the ones in charge insisted that to be taken literally, which causes a whole mess of problems. Peace and love, everyone. I love you all. Connect to one, mind and soul. Namaste.